Thank you for turning up today. I thought I'd start with a short summary of how I think the practice is structured. First, I think to say is that the practice, I think for me, essential about the practice is this organic structure, and that you're really listening to your own instincts to determine what is too much and what isn't too much. But I also appreciate that people it might be helpful for people to have some sort of structure, especially when you're familiarizing yourself with the practice. So I'd say, particularly in the beginning, I don't think you should do a very long practice unless you really feel up to it. I think this is quite a strong practice, so I wouldn't do it for very long. We've done half-hour sessions and 20-minute sessions in these sessions again that we've done so far. And I think if you do it at home, 20 minutes quite a good time, and then maybe do 5 minutes at the beginning where you connect to that spaciousness, and 5 minutes at the end, and then you have your 10 minutes of Tonglen. And then in the Tonglen practice, taking a break when it becomes too much. You could just still be in the posture, still be with the body, but you don't have to, do the Tonglen practice then. So I think that's what I would suggest if you do the practice at home as a structure. So do the 5 minutes and the 5 minutes and the 10 minutes. If you want to do it longer, it's a bit like with the stages of any of the meditations. We know you could just make it longer, like half an hour, and do 6 minutes or 7 minutes at the beginning and at the end, something like that. And at any time when it becomes too much, just give yourself permission to stop. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do it. So follow your own instinct. I think for me, that's what I love about the practice. It can be so organic, and we can just really follow what, just respond to what's happening right now. So you're always able to come back to what's happening in the here and the now, and we don't need to force anything. Anyway, is that remotely helpful then, Karin? Particularly you were finding, yeah? Okay, good. Anyway, let's just, so I hope that is helpful in terms of a structure here, yeah? So the spaciousness beforehand and afterwards, some sort of organic pace. That's I think is most helpful. But I often just do like part of my meditation as Tonglen, or I do some in the moment. So that's how I often do that. I don't often just go and sit down and like, now I'm going to go do the Tonglen practice. It does often just happen for me that I feel like this is what I want to start doing. Let me just see what's here in the chat. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the switching. Okay, so that's another question. We've got another, I'll just first say the structure of the session is, I'm going to present our theme for today, then we're going to do the practice, then we'll have a break, and then we'll do another practice, then we'll have the breakout groups for 10 minutes, and then we have the Q&A at the end. So I just suggest from now on, could you hold your questions for the end so I can move into the material that I had prepared for today, because I think we could do a whole session just responding to each other, but I'd like to, from now, stick to the material that I've prepared. So dropping out of that, trying to not have a too literal mind. Sometimes I think we can get quite caught up in, now we've got to do this, and now we've got to do that. It's got to be like this. And then actually we're in the thinking mode, but the suggestion is to see if you notice that, to drop into something that is much more direct, as it were, just feeling what you're feeling in the body, feeling any kind of emotional tone that might be present. So this in itself, I think, takes a bit of practice. Dropping out of that, wanting to figure out, wanting to understand, wanting to know, and getting into a more of an experiential feel, as it were. So that's a shift that I think most of us can make. And I hope that you'll manage. That's why we're connecting to the spaciousness at the beginning as well, to get out of that thinking mode, which could be quite rapid. And it's not like we can switch it on or off, but we can start to tune into those natural spaces that are there in our experience at any time for us to connect back into. So last week, we talked about opening up to suffering, and I talked about the noble truths and how the first noble truth is the truth of suffering. There is suffering, and how the practice is a direct way of addressing this. So we feel suffering, we're noticing it, we are with it, we're accepting it or respecting it. So here we are, we've established it, there is suffering. And from there on, we know there's a path out of it, there's an end to it. We can start doing the practice, we can actually do something, we can respond in a skillful way. And a skillful way in this particular mindset that I'm talking about is to turn towards it by breathing it in and by breathing out what's helpful. And in the practice, if you do get stuck in a thinking mode, not knowing what to breathe out, why don't you just stay with the breathing in and just give yourself a break on the out breath? You can do that as well. If it gets a bit too convoluted, just take a break on the out breath or take a break on the in breath and only do the out breath, so you can work with that organically. Just see how that works for us. So it's a spirit of experimentation, I think, and maybe even play. I sometimes think about like an acrobat, like a juggler, like you're just having all this stuff in the air. It can be quite playful, and the mind is just extraordinary. The flexibility of the mind. Now I can think about like Vienna or a holiday in Malta, and now I see my microphone and my slippers, and now I see you. Isn't that amazing? It's just completely amazing. So the capacity of the mind to make those transitions, you don't have to do anything to create that. That is just how the mind is. Our mind is like that. It's just extremely pliable. And what we're doing in the practice, we're actually utilizing that capacity of the mind to go here and to go there, to train our minds. And then the Darkanis, we talked about Niguma and Sukhasiddhi, the Darkanis that founded this whole lineage of the Tonglen. Of course, they didn't know about neuroscience, but they did know that this practice actually worked. And how does it work? It works on the basis of the imagination. And we're using the imagination skillfully to generate or to sow the seeds of love and kindness, of compassion, of peace, of ease. That's what we're actually doing. So Kamali Sheila, I live with Kamali Sheila, and he has MS, and he was reading up on a website about all sorts of things that you can do to work with your condition. And he was saying to me, well, they had this thing about like if you could just sit and imagine walking, and that is just as good as the walking itself. And that kind of told me how mainstream this has become. And there's evidence for this everywhere, not everywhere, but in sports and physiotherapy, etc. That when you're imagining something, the neural pathways in the brain are going to be laid out. So you're actually, through imagining, changing that brain. Yeah, you're changing the pathways in the brain, and this is how it works. So in terms of the literal mind is just a hindrance here. It really is. We know we're doing this skillfully. We know we're doing this as well as we can. So why don't we use the imagination and play and use that capacity, that plasticity? You could even say neuroplasticity, but I think that's maybe a bridge too far. We can use that to change our brain to become more compassionate and loving and wise, etc. And it's really, really possible. And this is what happens in the meditation. Yeah. So this is how it works. This is really how it works. So that's why we are using the imagination. So we're not, when we're imagining, we're breathing in a beach ball or whatever, and we're breathing out like love, or we're breathing out flowers, or whatever we're breathing out, is not actually happening, but we do use that capacity to train ourselves. Anyway, you can hear I'm quite passionate about this because, you know, I love this meditation. I think it can be so extremely useful, but just in case your literal mind was kind of playing up saying, well, I can't breathe this in, or I can't do this, or it doesn't make sense. And, you know, when I'm breathing out, I'm not going to help anyone. Well, you are helping, you're helping yourself, and you're going to help others. And this is the whole background to the practice, the spirit of bodhicitta. You're doing it for yourself, but you're also doing it for others. And that's how this whole the practice is turning round. So we're asking we're just suggesting that the literal mind can take a back seat here. So just for the duration of the meditation, it's not too long, so that should be possible, I think. Yeah, and I sometimes feel that that whole process, I think I might have used that word before, alchemy. I really like that. There is some mysterious turning around that is happening when we're turning towards that suffering. We're breathing it in, and then it just turns around, and then we're breathing out something that is helpful. In essence, we don't really need anything to make that transition, but if it helps you, you can imagine that wish-fulfilling jewel. I think we mentioned that before. So it is not that we're going to create that peace or that ease or that calm or that care. We're just channeling it, as it were. We're just channeling it. We're tuning into it. It's there. It's that capacity of the mind, that incredibly pliability, that we are able to do that. We are able to, if we can take our mind there, we can tune into spaciousness. Why not? We can tune into stability, and so we can just tune into that. That is, our mind is capable of that. And then, but you could it could be helped by having this perspective of it's coming from a space like of the heart. You could receive whatever you want to receive in the heart, and it could be transformed there, and then something can come out from the heart somehow. And the heart space isn't yours. It's not limited. The heart space is just completely open. And you could say that that is the space that would be the domain of the bodhisattvas and the Buddhas, etc. That's the domain. That is because they have realized that. They have realized that is the spaces like that. So it is, you could imagine that the Buddhas and the bodhisattvas, they're all supporting you in that space. That is the capacity of the brain. You can do that. The mind can tune into a mode like that. Anyway, is this remotely helpful, or am I going off on a tangent here? Yeah, we've got a few thumbs up. Well, that's encouraging. Thank you. So let's just, for this practice, for this practice today, have this spirit of lightness and playfulness, and we're just trying this out, but we are trying it out skillfully. That is what we're doing. And if you are in the practice at any point, so if it's discursive, so you've got lots of other thoughts going on, it doesn't matter. We could still do the practice. We could, it doesn't matter that the mind is discursive. It doesn't matter that we feel uncomfortable. It doesn't matter that we feel whatever we're feeling. We could just still do the practice. We could just weave it all into the practice, if that makes sense. So we're turning towards what's here and using that to train our brain. And to, I don't know what to say anymore. Sometimes that happens. It's just you sort of drop into a space where there's no words. I hope I'll find my words again when we're doing the practice. I'm going to guide you through the practice. I think that's enough from me for now. So, what I suggest is everybody just take their seat. Just taking a bit of time to find the posture that works for you best. We're not machines. We've got organic beings. Just taking your seat, possibly with a bit of ease. But we're just taking our seat with what's there for us right now. This is just us. This is our gold. This is the material, our lives right now. Whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, this is what we're working with today. Yeah. And it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. The material that's here right now is the very, very best because it's here right now, okay? It's our gold. So as you're settling into the practice, just touching the earth. Just feeling the body touching the earth touching you. The total time for the meditation will be 30 minutes. So the body touching the earth, and in us taking our seat, we are also taking our seat in the whole lineage of everyone practicing the Dharma, practicing Tonglen, the sending and the receiving. So feeling the earth underneath, allowing, trusting the earth to carry us. And then with the crown of the head pointing at the ceiling, we're also touching the sky. And you could even imagine, if this works for you, the sky affecting the body with its spaciousness and clarity. So in this stage of the practice, tuning into a sense of spaciousness, the space around you perhaps. Coming into the pores, reaching the entire body and mind. Or maybe finding a few gaps between the thoughts. So we're connecting to that spaciousness, that backdrop. And just for a while, just sitting here in spaciousness. Or maybe it's crowded, that's just what's there. But maybe perhaps there might be some gaps, some openness somewhere in the body, the thoughts. And perhaps there could be some spaciousness between any sounds you might be hearing. We don't have to worry too much about how this is possible. We don't need to figure it out. And when the mind drifts away, you can just bring it back to that body seated, the touch of the earth. And whenever we get lost in the practice, you can just always come back to this touch point. And now starting to find the breath in the body. So just tuning into the natural breathing that's happening, whether we pay attention or not. So just meeting the breath, receiving the breath. Returning towards the breath with respect, kindness. We could start by using the out-breath to send that care, that support, that kindness. Imbuing the out-breath with kindness and ease, or well-wishing. And just for now, leaving the in-breath open. And getting used to that rhythm of sending on the out-breath, with the out-breath. Until it feels a bit natural or comfortable. dropping out of any figuring out, thinking, if possible, into something more direct, playful, light. And when we feel ready for it, finding, imagining, but preferably finding in your experience anything that is a bit difficult or painful. And starting by turning towards that by breathing it in. And we could get just used to that. By doing that for a number of in-breaths, we could just have a rest on the out-breath. Anything that's here right now. It's painful. And when you feel ready for it, starting to pair the in and the out breath. Breathing in any sense of unease, worry or anxiety, distress. And breathing out love, solidarity, care. And when you get stuck in thinking, maybe you can let that go. Feel the breath. So we're trying to keep connected to that texture of the breath in the body. That would help with not getting into our thoughts too much. And if it feels a bit too complicated, maybe just taking a break in the practice and feeling your way into what's happening right here, right now. Any difficulty relating to the practice could also be breathed in any doubt, any emotion can just be breathed in, a sense of not being at ease, just breathe it in. Breathe out, understanding. Breathing in any tightness, breathing out openness, breathing in disconnection, breathing out connection, connectiveness. Do take a little break if it becomes a bit too tight or you're losing the way in the practice. Coming back to the body, seated, and then the texture of the breath. And feeling your way into what's here right now. And whatever it is that we're breathing in, we know a lot of people in the same Zoom space today may be suffering from something that is fairly similar or maybe the same, has the same tone. And because I'm working with it myself, I might as well expand and imagine breathing in that difficulty, that pain of others just as well as mine, pairing that with mine, breathing it in and breathing out for myself and for all of us, whatever is helpful. So do join in with this part of the practice, or if you want to keep working with yourself, or just do what feels best for you right now. Imagine other people out there experiencing anxiety, and breathing in, breathing out your solidarity, respect, breathing in my distress and other people's distress. Breathing out ease, whatever's helpful. And again, if it's a bit too complicated, just dropping out of the thoughts into the body, the felt sensations in the body, and then whatever comes up, connecting to that by breathing it in and breathing out. Breathing in, trying to get it right. Breathing out, ease, support. Breathing in stuckness, tightness. Breathing out, openness, flexibility. You can breathe out whole situations, breathe out whatever you like, whatever is helpful. And at any point, just take a break if that's what you want to do. Breathing in, irritation or aversion. Breathing out empathy. Turning towards what is here right now. Whatever is coming up in the mind stream. using the amazing capacity of the mind to turn it around. Now, if you want to join in with the next step, which is the last 5 minutes of the meditation, letting go of any trying to imbue the breath, perfume the breath. Feeling the body. Maybe feeling the air on your skin. Just tuning into the spaciousness around, above, behind. Spaciousness between the sounds. Spaciousness in the breath, in the body. Openness. Between the thoughts, between the sensations, the emotions. The open sky. Behind the clouds. Still planted in the earth. So maybe you would like to keep on going with the sitting. So please feel free to do so. But maybe we could bring the practice to an end. So, a break for those of us who want it. And we'll come back at 5 past, if that's okay. Yeah, 5 past. So see you in a while, 5 past. Look after yourself. Okay, I think most of us are back. I wanted to just ask one thing before we move on. Okay. Yeah. Yes, Ben. I'll remind me later if I forget. But I'll try to do that. And Sarah had a question earlier on, which I think I'd just like to go back to it and just, Sarah, do you feel that's been addressed by what I talked about earlier, or say a bit more? This is the thing about switching the breathing in and breathing out something that's positive. That was in the chat. Would you like to just maybe do an okay if you feel to that, or do something? Don't know. Or maybe you don't want to do. That's fine too. But anyway, I don't think I get a response to this, so I'll just assume that that's okay now. There's just I think it's just quite an important point, finding it difficult to make that transition between breathing in what's difficult and breathing out that's what's positive or helpful. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's still difficult. Okay. So I'm just going to, this is the last thing on the chat, I think, before we move on. Otherwise, there's just so much that can be opened up by this. Yeah. Great. Yes, I think that's a good point, Barbara. And so this was for Sarah. There's something about just taking care or looking after that breath, in the sense of, it will be great if that breath feels natural in some sort of way. Usually, I think when you notice the breath is starting to be labored or more difficult, or just starts to feel unnatural, also good just to draw back into just allowing the system, the body, whatever it is, just to do its own thing, and just allowing that natural connection with the breath to be reestablished somehow. So that's a really good one. You could just stay there if that works for you. And in terms of breathing in what's difficult, it also, there's some time, I think, needed when you turn towards it, what's difficult, for that to just to start to feel a bit more comfortable with that. So that's definitely something that is something to take into account. So we're needing a bit of time, usually, to turn towards whatever is difficult. And sometimes we find something quite unexpected there, don't we? Sometimes things can arise in the practice that we've just not really paid attention to, or we might breathe it in and find it is quite difficult. So just somehow getting used to that, being with that, and then for that time you could just leave that out breath doing whatever it wants to do. You just take a break on the out breath, and then when you feel like you're kind of addressing it, or you've tuned into it or turned towards it, that's when you can start doing the out breath. Does that make sense? I hope so. So that's, yeah, people, if it doesn't make sense, can you let me know? I'm just looking at your windows. I've got two thumbs up, and just take these 2 thumbs up from the whole crowd as encouragement to move on. I do think we need to kind of start to just getting more comfortable with what's here. It's not easy, is it? It's not easy. That's why we don't turn towards it. We habituated ourselves not to turn towards it because it's often a bit too uncomfortable to turn towards it, but that's not a route out. The route out is to turn towards it because it's not going to disappear when we ignore it. That is the way through. This is suffering, there is a way out of suffering. This is how it works. It's not like there's suffering, I'm trying to ignore it. It just doesn't work. But sometimes it can be a bit too much. And then we got to really look after ourselves. We can't do everything in one session, can we? We could just do it one bit at a time, yeah? Okay, so hopefully that was useful. We're going to do another practice now. And this is a short practice, about 20 minutes. And I made myself some tea. I'm going to drink it after the practice. But it's up to you. Okay, so taking our seat again. And for those of us who feel it's useful or to whom it appeals, you could get a sense of, I'm not alone with this. By remembering all those practitioners who've come before us practicing the Dharma, practicing Tonglen. It might not work for you, but maybe it does. A sense of trusting the practice, being connected into something that is bigger than me. A sense of a vast era that's gone by. And now we're here together right now. And this is what's happening right now. Also some sort of acknowledgement maybe of our own efforts in the past, taking us here. The practice shaping us, carrying us, giving ourselves to the practice. So feeling the body, this body that's come out of all of that somehow. And here we are. Seated. tuning into any spaciousness in our experience. Getting a glimpse of that sky behind the clouds. And the body, around the body. Between the thoughts. A sense of that infinite mind space. Which isn't me or mine. It's just an incredible mind space. Feeling the body. And then tuning into the breath. Feeling the texture of the breath. Befriending the breath. Perceiving the breath. And whilst still connected with that texture of the breath, turning towards whatever is difficult for us right now. And maybe if there isn't anything difficult, we could just start immediately by turning towards any other people out there. But if we do find something, turning towards it gently, kindly, opening up to it by using the breath to breathe in. You just leave the out breath open for now if you want to. Any worries about the practice can be breathed in. Worries about getting it right, not doing it right. keeping it light. So we're breathing in what we find that's difficult, painful. And we could just breathe out whatever helps right now. Could be small, could be big, could be subtle. Breathing in any strain, any striving, breathing out ease, or whatever you feel is helpful, whatever comes. Dropping out of any figuring out into the felt sensations of the breath. Breathing in the texture of that difficulty, a situation, a feeling, a thought. And whenever you feel you're ready for it, opening out to include the suffering of all of those out there, suffering from a similar situation, pain. Folding in to the breath, pulling into the breath anything that's manifesting in the mind stream, that's difficult, painful. Feeling the texture of it, and breathing out. Openness, support, for a few more minutes, taking in the suffering, breathing out, respect, care. And then letting go of the riding the breath, dropping back into the sense of spaciousness. Absorbing the practice. Just sitting with spaciousness or whatever is here. Oh, exactly right. Maybe feeling the skin, the air, touching the skin, the base, the hands. Sensing the space around you. And when you're ready, opening the eyes and re-engaging with our space here today on the screen. Okay, so just taking a moment to make that transition. I know that sometimes that's easier than other times to come out of the meditation and then into a completely different type of space, but we know the mind is flexible, so hope we can do it. I'm going to create, I haven't pressed the create button yet, here I go. I've created some breakout groups, and we have 3 or 4 people in a group. And so the suggestion here is it's going to be about 10 minutes to talk about the practice and, just talk about the practice that we've done today. In as much as you want to. Obviously, there's no obligation here. And then making sure that everybody gets a chance to speak. Well, we know that, don't we? And that would be great. So hopefully you want to join in with that. And so I'm going to open the rooms and see you in 10 minutes, okay? Hello, welcome back everyone. I would just first like to address, it was Ben, I think, that was asking that question. I tried to weave that into the beginning of the practice a bit, Ben, and I'm not sure whether that made any remote sense to you how I did that, but you asked a question about how important it is to feel like you're part of a lineage. I'm not sure whether it is important. I think it is important if it works for you. If you could connect to it, if it helps you to do that, then that's important. If it isn't helpful, then don't, It's just, for me, it brings out that sense of this is bigger than me. And I think that's important for the practice as well, because what happens under the influence of these difficult emotions is that our world seems to decrease and become quite tight and small somehow. And if we know that we can connect to something that is bigger than ourselves, it might just bring in that bit of openness and spaciousness, just that memory that it isn't only about me or mine, if that makes sense. And I do think that for me, it's important to know that this actually works. This practice really works. And, any Dharma practice, I think it works. And how do I know it works? I know it from my own experience. I know it from the people around me that have been on the path alongside of me. But I know it also because we've got the witnesses from the past who've left their marks and their insights in the teachings, the written teachings, and the teachings that have been passed orally. So, yeah, I don't know. If it helps, take it. If it doesn't help, don't. You see what I mean? Does that help, Ben? Or yeah, I see a faint.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good. Thank you, Ben, for unmuting. How do you spell the names of the Darkinis? It's Nikuma and Sukha Siddhi. So that's the two. But the women from Kashmir, the yoginis, and the one I really like, the Sukha Siddhi, being well known, that we don't know anything about her except that she was a beer merchant. Anyway, I like that. I'm not sure whether you like that. So I'll check that, because I know that I've been struggling with that spelling of particularly the Niguma a number of times. So I shall see if I was correct there. And I was, yay. Okay. And I think maybe it's a nice time to just tell you again about the teaching of Sukha Siddhi. So this is coming from the 11th century Kashmir to us. The sky is empty and non-conceptual, she tells us. Cut the root of this conceptual mind. Cut the root and relax. That's what she's telling us. So I like that, coming to us from the ages. Anyone wants to say anything at this point? Because I could rattle on forever.
Again, please.
Sorry?
Could you say that quote again, please?
Yes, I can. The sky is empty and non-conceptual. Cut the root of this conceptual mind. Cut the root and relax. I'm going to do this trick that I really like. Oh, I love that. So I just copied it from my iPad, and then I can just stick it in the chat of my computer. I love that. Yeah, my computer is just as flexible as the brain, apparently. But anyone would like to say anything just to some house rules? And if Marie-José, I see you, and I see your hand, so you can go first. Yes, so like Marie-José has demonstrated, she's got that blue hand up. You can use that, or you could wave, and then hopefully either Aparaja or myself will be able to see you. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Lucky me, I've got a blue hand.
Yes, it's nice to have a blue hand for a change.
Yes. So my experience today and also other days is because there is not so much thinking going on. There is much more breathing and, you know, the motion, the anchoring all the time of the breathing, you know. I find it difficult to it's feelings coming and going all the time.
Yeah.
So I find it difficult to elaborate a lot about what is happening. So
yeah,
to just be, you know, very articulate and talk a lot about how it went for me. I mean, like I can say that.
Yeah.
I said before that it was liberating, but yeah, it's a concept, you know. And what I would like to say about this time is that I just felt that I was earth, and I was breathing all the nastier stuff and bringing out mist. I really disappeared.
Yeah.
Earth.
Yeah.
I was the earth breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out.
Great. Yeah. Sounds wonderful, Marie-José. So I think that sounds really, really wonderful, doesn't it? I think so. And it's lovely I think it's lovely to have some respite of these relentless thoughts. And actually, this is much more the image that that how you articulate it is much more, I think, in accordance to the nature of reality. In that sense, it's that sense of openness and the sense of not identifying with your experience and this is me or this is mine. That's much more in the nature of in line with the nature of reality as we know it, as we learn about it. Yeah. So it sounds wonderful, actually, Marie-José.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So there's it seems like. It's just lovely to hear that kind of thing happens in the practice. And obviously, there's no problem with it. It sounds really, really wonderful. And I do think that sometimes, we're also pre-verbal beings, aren't we? I mean, a lot of the things that are happening to us, there are no words for it. There might not be any images for it. So the only thing we might be able to do is just be with it somehow or connect to it somehow. We don't know what it is. We don't really need to know what it is, really. We don't really need to figure this out. But so I can find myself sometimes dropping into a space that's just, I just can't find the words. So why would we have to find the words? Images could be a bit closer to that, what you could say is the nature of reality, I'm not sure, because they communicate something that is a bit more deep and it might not be conceptual. And but yes, our being is operating on all these different levels. We've got all these different aspects in our being, don't we? So we just got to see what is there, what's coming up for us. Just going to see what's on the chat here. Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to just briefly look at the chat here. Oh, yeah. Yeah, your friend died. Okay. Yeah. Oh, lovely. Oh, well, thanks, Anne, for sharing that. I'm sure we all relate to it somehow or another, and it's just a beautiful example of how the practice might work. Yes, we are all in this together, and through connecting to that suffering as being something a bit more, well, far more universal than just me and mine, it really helps. It really helps. So that's I'm grateful for you putting that in. That's lovely. Yeah, and good luck with that, or with that, Anne, because there's so much suffering going on in the world, isn't there, at the moment? But there's also so much beauty and connection that we could still breathe out. That's there too. It's all there. Okay, let's see. Any other observations, any other insights or questions at this point? A few minutes before we still have a bit of time, so do wave your hand, put your blue hand up, which you can find, I think, next to your, where do we find the blue hand? I think it's next to your name in the participants. The dot there.
Yashaburi, sorry.
Yes.
I just want to say hello to Claire. We've been on Taraloka for.
Okay.
I haven't seen her for a few years. Hi, Claire.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we go to Catherine, who's raised her hand. Thank you.
Hello. It occurred to me while in the week, actually, because I found myself spontaneously practicing, and it occurred to me that sometimes when I'm going into situations, I know what's going to be difficult if there's somebody I find difficult. And so it's a good time, kind of before I get to the really, I've breathed in, I'm in that difficult situation, to know what the antidote is.
Yeah.
So if I go in, and I found the worldly winds really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I'm going in, so for me, it's often just think generously, breathe out generosity. If all else fails, breathe out generosity. Yeah. And I find it really helpful than getting in touch with something that's really strong and powerful, and then in a weaker state, to try and find what I need. Anyway.
Yeah, that's very, very helpful, and I think that's I think this is one of the ways that Tonglen can be beneficial, is that you do find that antidote, don't you? You can search for it, and I think that's also where wisdom comes in, and then it makes sense to me to try to find that in whatever conditions you are in. And then maybe it'll pop up in the mind stream, and you can benefit from that. So yes, it's actually quite But it's a lovely practice that, just reflecting on what the antidote might be, but yet, and you know that, Catherine, but yet we don't try to deny what's happening or to push it away, but it is helpful to have that, to turn towards it, and in the same space, why not? There's space for, okay, what might be the antidote here? And in doing that, there's something that loosens up a bit about that being caught up in the difficulty. Anyway, we've approached our end time. I just wanted to finish by saying a few things. One thing is, well, Anne, I'm really wishing you all the best in the time to come. And secondly, if you would like to do some practice, that would be fab. Just try to do a few practices, maybe 2 or 3 before we meet again, to keep that thread of practice going. Or maybe you could do it a bit like what Catherine is suggesting, to reflect on the antidote, or somehow keep the connection or the thread going with this practice. And then lastly, the Aparajita is here, and he's in the Buddhist Central 9 team that facilitates this space. And I'm really grateful that I've been invited to do these sessions. But there's also, there's people, they're working sometimes part-time, sometimes full-time, to get this whole thing going. And I think I've never been more grateful for this space than in this pandemic, where it proves that we had the whole platform that's been established by the Buddhist Central 9 long before the pandemic, but the platform was there. So the only thing we needed to do is people it and utilize it. So if you want to support this effort, Aparajita has put a link in the chat. You can indicate this particular event or make it more general. That's up to you. And obviously completely free if you don't have the resources or don't want to give, or giving to something else, to not give. But do feel free to give. That's me for today. And it's 1 minute past 11 where I am, well, whatever time it is at yours. So hopefully see you again next time for our last session together of the Tonglen course. And we're going to talk more about, well, the insight aspects of the practice. Yeah? Okay, so thanks so much for joining in, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Very, very welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.